Good morning.
Set up. How's that audio level?
Now I can hear you.
See, that was good.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's see, so I need let's see, grab that. That's the right one. Here's the right one.
Here you are.
Elevate. All right, we're hitting record. Should I go here? I'm gonna move my. So, hello everybody. We are doing the standard studio arrangement here. Just a second. While I get off camera and hopefully get in on camera where it's a little better lighting. Oh, that looks much better now. So I'm not looking down at everybody.
Yeah. Now you're better.
There we go. Whoop. Okay, so
Yeah,
that's
that's a good point. Let me fix that.
Get me straightened out a little bit. Bam. Whoop, there. Yep. Pardon us while we just sort of like do our basic setup for you guys.
There we go. How's that?
Oh, looks good. So excellent. So I don't feel like I'm bright, but not being blinded.
I still have to work on that. I don't have good lighting in this room, but this is what I got to work with today.
Yeah, I get different. It's different based on my what time of the day. Obviously, so I get a little bit different light depending on because I got a window right here, so it very much can change what I end up with. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome back to our weekly challenge. This week we're going to talk about Dustin Domariz. I forget how to pronounce his last name, but that's okay. Dusty. This is a really good conversation that we had. We're talking about really like right sizing how much you bite off when you're actually building out a project. So this is great. Welcome to our weekly challenge for Developreneur, Building Better Developers. I am Rob Broadhead, one of the founders of Developreneur. If you don't know already, check all of our back catalog. Also the founder of RB Consulting, where we help you straighten out we help you prepare for big projects and make sure that you are ready, that you are properly going in with the eyes wide open as you jump into one of these big investments of an IT project. Good thing and bad thing. I'll talk a little bit about more of this after our introductions, but good thing is I've had some really fun AI chats this week, numerous of them with real people, and a couple with AI itself. Made some adjustments and things like that were fun, but also I'm going to talk about them a little bit because in the conversations with the chat group, the chat bots of varying sorts, I got some interesting feedback and thought it was just some stuff that'd be cool to share. Bad thing is my son just like moved. I just had clouds go over. So now my lighting is going to change a little bit as we go through this. But better yet, let's just pass this over to Michael while I try to find my glass of water.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Malash. I'm one of the co-founders of Building Better Developers, also known as Developreneur. I'm also the founder of Envision QA, where we create reliable, tailored software that helps you work smarter, scale faster, and stay in control. Good thing, bad thing. Good thing, like Rob, we've had some interesting conversations with some different people lately. Been getting out, networking a little bit, kind of meeting some new people and learning some cool new things about what's going on in the world. Bad thing, what's going on in the world. I'm on a news fast and basically social media fast, trying to stay away from all the negativity going on in the world right now.
Wow, that's quite the fast because the negativity is pretty much everywhere, except for here. We are positivity all over the place. Let me tell you about my AI thing. This was actually really fun, amusing, and educational. One of the things that we have done at RB Consulting is we have embraced AI substantially. So we are, as an AI consultant, I'm also using it, drinking from your own Kool-Aid, as it were, or something like that, scratching your own itch. Built our old LLM. We have the RB operating system, which is basically our document library and things of that nature. Several other things. So we've actually nicknamed, as we've mentioned before, AI, typically ChatGPT. We call him Chip, which him, as I know, misgendering possibly, which is where this story goes. But we also we use Grok, we use Perplexity, we use Gemini. And we use Microsoft's a little bit, and mostly just because that's just not in our primary tool set. But we do have it available because these things are becoming sort of, you're going to see them everywhere. So in doing so, actually, we've had a lot of conversations, we being primarily myself and Natalie, our operations manager, and talked about the team and development and what are some ways that we may want to integrate or advertise, essentially, or tell people that, hey, we use AI. And it came to me at some point that I was like, well, maybe, because we've got our team page, maybe we should add AI as a team member. And so I thought about it as it's a little bit of a gimmicky thing and stuff like that. But then I actually went down that rabbit hole with AI itself and said, well, how should we do this? What would this look like? There's a lot of interesting stuff that came out of this. The short answer is that we will have, it's not out there as I speak, but probably by the time this shows up, by the time you guys are watching this, we will have, Chip will be one of our member of our staff. And I had Chip build its own page and everything else, because we have a staff page, and it really was, there's a conversation that went with that to make sure that we are clear that Chip is a tool that we use. Chip is something that we're using. We're not letting it run. I'm not a fan of letting it just run wild and do a bunch of bots and do a bunch of stuff. It's really a virtual assistant, for lack of a better term. It really is just something that we use to be like, hey, I need you to create this report, blah, blah, blah. It does help with coding and other things. As we got into this, it did a really good job, surprising to me, it did a really good job of, we'll call it humanizing the Chip personality on that page. Now, granted, I gave it really good templates. I said, here's what our others look like. And it did a really good job about talking about, here's what Chip does, and here's some of the tasks it does, because it knows very well. But then it also said, what Chip does when when Chip's not working, which was sort of funny, because it's basically Chip does it. It addressed it in a serious way. It says, well, Chip isn't. But if Chip isn't working, then it's probably hiding behind a spreadsheet or something like that. So it gave it a little bit of a human touch, which I thought was very interesting. More interesting was when I said, give me an image, because we have two images. We have a business and a casual image for all of our team. And I said, I need a business and a casual image. Now, initially, it didn't give me anything. And I said, well, okay, I need a business and a casual image. And it gave me initially, I'm not going to show it here, but I may throw that somewhere in a link at some point. It gave me this cartoonized, very young female, think of manga type, those kinds of cartoons, very much the big eyes and the wide eyes, all that kind of stuff. So it was cartoonish, but not overly cartoonish. But the interesting thing was and we actually had the conversation, why did you choose female? And because it was just one of those, it's we had never gendered it. And so the whole thing was to put it to AI to say, how do you see yourself? And it addressed it and said, well, I really don't have a gender. However, when we asked, why did you pick female? It said that, AI is generally considered female because it's an assistant, because it helps you out, because it is trying to be helpful. And a lot, like it gave a nice list of these traits that essentially it said these are female traits. These are typically attributed to females. We also asked a question like, how does that look if we have a female with a mostly male staff? Would it be better to be male or not? And it definitely addressed that and talked about balance and things like that. And so it's really interesting that we went through this and it actually sees itself. And it actually gave the example of Alexa, Siri, all of these. And I hadn't thought about it, but all of those are female voices. They're all, you can change it to whatever you want, but essentially it's treated out of the box as a female. So it's a really interesting thing about how we'll say AI sees itself. Having watched Tron Ares just weeks ago, it actually is like an interesting little, that stuff's all in your head as well. But it's one of these things that I think I'm really interested as we go into this is how we recognize what AI can do for us and what it assumes. Because there's a lot of those things that goes back to what we're going to talk about today. What we talked about this week is that there are assumptions that go into some of these things. And if those assumptions are wrong, then the whole project's going to fail. Wrapping that story up is we did go back and we said we would like to have something. It actually suggested what it called human adjacent picture. And it turned out that actually the human adjacent is just a generic looking mid-level, probably 30, 40-ish, probably more 40 to 50-year-old female, more or less. I mean, it had a short haircut and some stuff like that, but you would think this would be like a woman of some sort or someone who identifies as a woman. Initially, it was very young, looked a little more like 20-something, early 30-something. Somebody, I will not mention her name, mentioned that like, maybe we could make her a little older. And so we asked to could you be a little older? And it jumped probably 20 years in, I would think, in the image that it used. We also asked, could you be a little more robotic? And it just slapped metal all over like a really bad 7 of 9. So it was a really fun, this is one of those things, it's a really fun exercise, but it's also, I think, very educational as to what we give AI and how it thinks and what it saves and what it doesn't. And I think if you haven't gone down this road a little bit and actually pursued AI beyond just like a stateful AI of some sort, not just like I ask it a question, or I do a search and then I'm done, but actually utilizing we'll call it the memory of it. You will find, I think, that there's a lot to learn there, and there's a lot of apps you can build related to this. This is something that Michael and I actually will be talking about, that we may have something down the road that we offer some of these kinds of things, because it's something that's like, it's here. There are practical uses to it today. You just have to be very careful as you get into it. That was a very long story, I know. So, and it looks like you may have even had some thoughts on that, Michael. So I'm going to throw that out to you so I can take a breath.
So it's funny because we talked to Dustin about, software systems and software as a service, things like that, and talking about like the business problem. And it's like almost everything you went through this process kind of touched on different points in the conversation we had with Dustin. Talking about adoption. Adoption is a real problem. Buying tools too early, using them, and you just walk through like, okay, we're kind of past the adoption phase of AI. It's like we need to start embracing it. We need to start using it. But the problem is companies don't know how to use it, right? They don't understand what this tool really can do for them. So it's just funny, and I love how you went through the process of starting with Chip. You've been talking about Chip for weeks, and now you've like tried to humanize it, trying to incorporate into your business. I find that extremely funny. Unfortunately, when you did the whole manga thing, all I could think of was Twitch. So for those of you that may not know what Twitch TV is, it's the video gaming streaming service where you can go watch people play video games, and a lot of people have funky animated icons that kind of simulate them. Which I think we can even do in Zoom. Like we can put on like little cow faces or whatever, and they'll kind of emulate us, our speech and our hands. It's just, I really find it interesting how you took an idea. kind of this problem you had, and it's like, well, how do you embrace this? How do you adopt it? How do you apply it? And it's just really cool because I've been dabbling with AI, but from a different perspective. I'm working on getting it more into the business side of things, but I've been working more on the automation side. Similarly, trying to take that code, that test generator tool of mine, and make it even more automated, using AI to get AI to basically real time test software instead of just doing it. Build all this test suite. I kind of want a rules engine that would basically test my test for me, and basically you don't have to keep the test stored anymore. You basically have these rules, and then it just goes through and tests the site for you. So it can kind of be, it can work with your system. It can grow with your system instead of being stagnant. So if your code changes, it would be like, oh, hey, you've got new code changes. Let me look at our tests and see if there's anything new that you haven't covered yet. And it looks to grow the test that way. So these are just kind of things that I've been working on, similar to what you're doing. But I love the idea, though, of the virtual assistant. That's really cool. It's just funny, though. And I keep going back to the conversation with Tess. It's like a lot of the things he talked about for adoption, for growing your business, for getting things going. This is where we need to begin. But the problem is a lot of businesses don't follow that. They go buy these tools. They go buy like ERP, CRMs, or some AI package, hand it to their employees and say, here, go, with no real guidance, no real instructions. And they want to see return on the investment immediately. It's like, well, what are you doing with this? How are you doing it? Well, I don't know. I've got like this pile of work to do with these deadlines, and now you're giving me something else to do on top of this and expect immediate return on investment. You're expecting me to immediately becoming more productive, more focused. And that's the opposite effect, because when you introduce something new in an already stacked workspace, you're going to see an increase in work and a decrease in performance in the short term, because you've then overwhelmed your staff, you've overwhelmed your employees, and now you have to get to that point where they have to have time to play with the tools. They have to have time to figure out how it works. But the problem is, if you don't give them that time and you don't give them that direction, it's not going to work. You're going to fail, or you're going to break things that are already broken. Like this could extremely highlight bad processes, procedures. And I'm going way off on a soapbox here, so I'm going to pause and hand this back to you for a minute.
It is easy to go there. And it actually does circles back to a lot of what we talked about with Dusty this week, is that, and it's actually interesting. I had a conversation on another podcast, and one of the things I was actually asked, because this is what RB Consulting does, is like, what is AI readiness? If you're providing an AI readiness assessment, what is AI readiness? And it's interesting because I said, well, the funny thing is like, we're taking everything and just slapping the name AI on top of, like, what are you, an architect? No, now I'm an AI architect. But it's like, no, you're not. You're just an architect. What's an AI project manager? It's a project manager. We're all putting this cart before the horse. And I said, really, like, AI readiness is actually just business readiness. It's the exact same stuff, really, that you would need to do that we talked about with Dustin. If you're going to do, whether it's like a CRM, or if you're going to go all the way to a full-blown ERP or something like that, you need your proverbial ducks in a row in order to do that and be successful. If you're just going to take a big honking tool and say, we're going to use this and we're going to shove our business into it, and you don't know what your business is, if you don't have enough awareness of how your business works, it's going to fail. You're going to spend a lot of time on that. And that's what we're seeing now, is Gartner's got stats out there that it's going to, like, I think it changes a little bit each time I see it, but it's roughly about 75% or 70% of the AI projects this year will fail. And the average cost is going to be, I think, $7 million per failed project for mid to large size businesses. That is not a small amount of change. And it goes back to, and they even mentioned it, companies aren't ready. They're diving into this. And so to sort of add a little caveat to my earlier story there is like, we as technologists should be playing around with AI. We should be finding ways that it's, and picking at it a little bit and saying like, does it do this? Does it solve this problem? Or this, really, it's this style of problem. For example, emails, like, how does it really help you write an email? How does it really help you write a status report? How does it really help you track KPIs? Because part of it's going to be understanding where its limitations are, which, jumping to the end, it is a pattern recognizing engine. So it has to have the patterns first. If you don't have the data, it's not going to, honestly, it will magically create data sometimes, but it's not going to create the right data. It's just going to fill in the blanks, just like a very junior staff member that's like, oh, I've got to just put data here, so I'm just going to put whatever. It doesn't matter. AI will do that kind of stuff, even if you tell it not to. So we need to be, if you're on the cutting edge of this, if your business wants to be, you need to actually be there and be able to say, well, these are some things it does, and these are some things it doesn't. And in most of the cases, the whole like jump to AI is no. If you aren't at a point where you can solidly automate your processes, which means if you can't solidly define and document your processes, AI is going to be a failure. And this goes back to what we talked about with Dusty, is there's all these big projects and these big budgets and all this stuff comes in, and sometimes it's a rush to get something done. It's like, okay, we've got 6 months to put NetSuite into all of our business because our current whatever the product is, our license is about to run out. And so we want to make sure that we can get off of this license in time before we get whacked with whatever our bills are. That is all well and good and very good reasons. Those are solid reasons to get this done. However, if you go off half-cocked, you're going to end up spending more time fixing stuff and chasing stuff down, because now you've already started the process. And now you're having to rewrite documentation and migrations and integrations and all of those shuns that we talk about many times. Then you have to rebuild those. You have to redo those. So you need to really sit down and plot out more, I think, more importantly than it has been in the past. You really need to be specific on requirements and specific on your design, because if you're going to utilize AI or utilizing a resource, a person, if you want to call it that requires very detailed instructions. You can give a human something and say, go do this. I had something from the editorial thing. Why? That says, my son doesn't like AI. How should I mention that? Should I talk that story?
I just also add in that some people don't like it.
Okay.
And Tim went into details with you about why he doesn't.
So, okay, good. I had something, my editor just like threw some ideas at me to talk about here. So I will talk about this in just a second, because I wanted to close in. The key is small. If we jump into something that's really big, then you have to have all of your ducks in a row. You have to know all of the pieces of your business in order to do it. It is going to be much better. It is much easier for us to take this in a piecemeal approach. Take something that is a small, well-defined process, and then let's make sure that we can detail it out, we can automate it, and then we can maybe use AI to get there. And honestly, I think you're going to find that by the time you get to the using AI portion of it, a lot of times AI actually doesn't add anything to it. Or if it does, it's just very minute pieces, because all it's doing is pattern recognition, which, guess what? We've been writing code to do pattern recognition for decades. And so sometimes we can build a better, tighter solution because we can very tightly define what the pattern is, what we're looking for, and how to do it, as opposed to having AI do it and its cost. Simple example of that would be if you have a CSV file that is just first name, last name, address, city, state, zip. You know what that pattern is. You know, like if it's pipe separated or comma delimited or whatever it is, you know what that pattern is. It is very easy to do that. Yes, you could tell AI to do it and it could bring it all back. But what was the cost for AI to do it, and even the time to process for AI to do it versus if you just had a script that did it as well? And I would be amiss if I didn't address my editor, and say, while I have very strong opinions towards this, and we are obviously diving right into AI, there's nothing wrong if you're waiting. If you're sitting there, and my son, for example, who is in IT and has been doing it for several years now, is not a fan of AI. And he's brought up some really good places where it is not. He's in I don't want to name his product that he works on regularly, but it is one of many products that is out there that is just saying, we are going to add AI. And that's really, this goes to Michael's conversation. What he said is like, they're just trying to add AI. Well, it's one of these that I don't think anybody ever asked the people that use the tool whether they needed AI, whether they wanted AI, or where it would even work. Because my son actually spent a decent amount of time laying out a solid list of all the reasons AI is not needed. It's not going to help. And it really is going to probably cause more harm than good when all is said and done. We had a conversation that you guys will hear about as well with, it's like, this also poisons the employment pool to some extent, because now you're seeing junior developers, their jobs are disappearing because people are saying, well, I can just use AI for that. But that means then the mid-level developers don't have junior developers to train, so that they don't grow up to become mid-level developers. And then eventually your whole ecosystem is poisoned and you end up in trouble. So I will now get off of that side. Apologize to all you guys, but I'm sorry, but not sorry. But I think this is something it's worth spending a little time on a Friday talking about, because it is a very common theme. And obviously, Michael and I both have strong opinions and experiences with it. So I will step down so you can step back up onto the soapbox.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Ian's point is actually very interesting, because I've seen some applications, just like he said, that have introduced AI, and I see no useful purpose for it at this time. It's just, hey, here's AI in your tool. It's like, why? Is it just so we can say we're using AI? It was interesting because I read an article, or we were in a conversation with someone the other day, but one of the automation companies, their chatbot is literally an API into ChatGPT. So if you can figure out which one that is, you don't have to waste your tokens or your money. You literally just go to their chatbot and you have a full access to the professional level of ChatGPT. It's like, these are examples of why adapting too early, not understanding why you're getting this tool, just, hey, we're getting it, can be a problem. Really, and Dustin kind of laid this out. It's like, start with the goal. We mention this all the time. Understanding your why. Define your outcome. Start with the outcome. So one of the examples he gave was, company needs a CRM. He's like, no. What the company needs, we want to increase customer retention. Two different things. One is the process, one is the tool. Figure out your processes, figure out your procedures, write those down. AI might be able to help you with that, but you need to really think through what it is that you need, what your business needs, what are you trying to accomplish. Then walk backwards. It's funny, in software, we call this test-driven development. We start with the end and work our way back to building the code. So you start from the solution, and then or you start with the end product, and then you work your way back and write the code. So for instance, if you need a JSON parser, so you're going to end up with JSON. So you start with a little method that just spits out JSON, and the test just reads the output. Okay, yes, I got JSON. And then you work your way back and you build the parser, you build all the pieces. But at the end, the test never changes. The test should always get this response. No matter what you do upstream, you should always end with this JSON. You should end with this process. Same thing. So you start with the goal. What is the end product? So your end product is never going to change. What you do upstream should fall in line to get that end product. If it doesn't, you're doing something wrong. So that's one of the things to figure out. Interestingly enough, though, just going out and buying tools, throwing AI at, doesn't mean you're going to get there. those tools and things you buy may highlight that, whoops, we don't have the policies and procedures or the process in place to get to this end product. So just throwing this tool in just highlights that we're way up here when we need to be down here. So take the time and revisit. This is not something that you do once and walk away. You need to constantly be reviewing your policies and procedures, your processes, and making sure that you're on track to hit your goal, that you're always focused on your goal. You're focused on what it is that your company wants to produce, what your solutions are, and that you're hitting that you're not going off on all these tangents or rabbit holes. Now, adoption can still be a problem. Time matters. Like Ian, he's waiting. So he is not one of those early adapters. Me and Rob, we're jumping in. To us, it's a new toy. But we're taking this toy and we are figuring out how to turn this toy into a BMW. We're trying to take this toy car and turn it into a real car, making it productive, making it sleek, making it useful. However, if Ian waits too long and AI becomes too embedded in companies and companies really only want developers with AI skills, then he might miss the boat. He might lose jobs or be unable to get contracts because he is not versed enough in AI to keep up with the current status quo. Now, is that right now? Probably not, but it could be coming. So these are just things, just in any tech stack, any development over the years, we've seen this. Back in the 80s, it was COBOL, Fortran. 90s, it became C, C Sharp, or C, C++, Java. And then over time, we've seen Python and, Groovy, Ruby, all these other Rust languages come up. Those that jumped on those early were kind of the forerunners, but they had a hard time finding jobs. They had a hard time figuring out what to do with these. That's kind of where we're at with AI right now. It's like, it's everywhere. It's there. People can jump in. They can play with it. We're still figuring out what to do with it. But the problem is, once people start really figuring out what to do with this, that is the time to start jumping on, start learning it, get in there, figure it out. Because if you're not, you'll be on that late side. And then you're going to be playing catch up. And it's going to take you a little bit longer to get there. And if AI goes the way everyone thinks it's going to go, if you're too late in adapting to AI, you may be too late to stay on this trajectory. You might be playing catch up for a long time.
A lot to unpack there. I've got a couple of things to show out. First one, it's not Ian. So I want to protect the innocent. Ian is not the son.
Sorry.
It is anti-AI. Ian has got a different approach. Ian happens to work for me, for those of you guys that don't know. And our approach for we'll call it the junior developers, I guess, which are actually all mid-level developers at this point, is to figure out where to best utilize AI. They have found that it is useful as a tool. They don't use it in the same way I do because they're using it as developers. I'm using it as running a business operating system as well. Like I'm using it fully as a virtual assistant. If you're just starting out, if you are a junior developer, I would just say you need to understand how to talk to AI, to utilize it, but do not make it your primary way of getting your work done, because you need to understand the underpinnings of what you're building. And if you're not doing that on a regular basis, then you're going to end up using AI is going to be your crutch instead of being a tool. And then you end up in a very bad situation. And I think that's what we're running into with businesses is they're just like, okay, I've got something bad. I don't have a process that I understand. So I'm going to slap AI on it and I'm going to fix it. I would say, Michael referred to it as being a new toy and stuff. It is, yes, you can see it that way, but I would say it is a toy like a double barrel shotgun is a toy, is that you can actually do a lot of damage and you need to be very intentional with what you're doing. There are already patterns that are out there for AI use, for AI architecture. There are definitely patterns of solutions that AI work very well with that are proven, that are documented, that have background behind it. If you want some fun research, is look into Albania's AI cabinet member. called Delia, and what they've done with that, there's a lot of places to go to realize and find out where AI mistakes have been made, but also where it can be very valuable and where it's very powerful. So which sort of gets us into the challenge for the week. Michael also mentioned, this is all test-driven development, sort of follows this, but it's actually, bottom line, it's like at the end of the day, it's requirements-driven development. It's like you have requirements, and this is why I'm going to harp on that just a bit, is you have requirements, and then that leads to your solution. Now, if you do it, one of the ways you can do it is you do requirements, and then you have tests that actually validate those requirements. And so now you say, what I build after that, my tests should always succeed because they have to output essentially what the requirements are expecting. This is what you should do is actually let's practice requirements. I think I want to go to a 30-day challenge instead of a 7-day challenge. And I'll see what your thoughts are on this, Michael, because we have not talked about this before because we almost never do. I think it's take a 30-day challenge, build a tool, build an app, and start with scratching your own itch. So maybe your problem is, like as a developer, maybe your problem is I need to have a better way to find my old code. Is find code that is like, find that JavaScript function I wrote 2 years ago that I know is out there and I just don't want to rewrite it again. Basically building your own, AI code repository that you can go refer to. That could be an example. But the key to this is write out first, before you write any code or before you have AI write any code or anything like that, is write out your requirements document. Get yourself, and it doesn't have to be Word and all that kind of stuff. Use like Markdown or something, just very specific. It has to do this and this and this and this and this. And go into all of those and ask yourself questions about all of that. Is like, how can I provide more information about each of those requirements? And then start having a conversation with AI. Pick your tool and basically walk through it and say, maybe give it from the start. Say, I want to build this. Give it all your requirements. And start with, what do you need to know? What have I missed? What can I, what am I needing to add that I have not? Where are the gaps? Is this valuable? Maybe you ask, is this something that already exists somewhere? What would it look like in the real world? What would the market look like for this? How would I talk about it? What would I call it? You can have these conversations, but the goal is to move you from requirements in that day 1 to a working application by day 30. Now, doing so, that means that you're going to give yourself this sprint. You're going to have to put some milestones in there. So maybe by the end of the first week, you need to have something that is a solid data model and flow diagram or something of that nature. Since you can use AI to generate code, you may have maybe it's a clickable demo of some sort. By week 2, then maybe it's, I need to know I have to have all of the functions fleshed out. So I need to know essentially this is the feature set that I'm going to be generating. By the end of week 3, maybe you need to be like, all right, I need to have something that I can now play with, that I can work on, that I can test. I need to have the unit test generated for it. I need to have documentation generated for it. Those kinds of things, and then get yourself to day 30. What are your thoughts on that as a bigger than normal challenge?
I think that works because it kind of flows with the conversation we had with Dustin, and it gets us back to focusing on the requirements, focusing on what it is that we're trying to accomplish. What is our goal? Because a lot of times that's where we fail. We think we have the requirements, but they're so loosey-goosey that you don't have the requirements. What you have is you have an idea that it's not fully fleshed out. And when you just try to implement that idea, you end up with a whole bunch of if then, what ifs. And if you have what if this, then you're not there. You don't have the requirements. Requirements should be able to be read as a statement. If you read the statement and there is no if then or, well, what about this? Then you have a good requirement. If you have a statement that prompts, well, okay, well, what about this? What about this? Then you don't have a requirement. You have just an idea. So get your statements, get your requirements fleshed out so that they are as definitive as possible, and then work through, build the software. I love it. One little tidbit I kind of want to throw in when we were talking about, train, the mid-level developers training the lower level developers and the mid-level developers to become senior. I'm already seeing this trend in a negative way. I'm seeing mid-level developers or team leads say, I'm too busy. Go talk to AI. Go have AI solve your problem. I don't have time to deal with you. I'm too busy working this problem. That is very dangerous. If you are not helping your team problem solve your problems and you're pushing them off on AI, one of two things is going to happen. They're going to leave, or two, your software is going to become a dumpster fire if it's not already, or three, you're never going to move up. You're going to be stuck putting out fires. You're going to be stuck in that busy mode. You're not going to learn the management skills necessary to become that senior, to continue analyzing and continue to grow.
I think it's a good parting thought there. It's a good way to grow, a good way to help your career is you can use AI to get used to like ordering something around and sending commands and see how that works. But then you definitely are going to you need to have that personal experience, because that is what's going to help you grow as a developer, and not only the soft skills, but also the technical skills, because it is always better to help you solidify something in your head if you have to explain it to somebody else. And the more you have to explain it, the more that becomes just something that's now it's just embedded in your psyche, essentially. Hopefully our ugly faces are not embedded in your psyche or the back of your eyeballs. And we thank you so much for hanging out with us. Thank you for spending your time. And just enjoy your challenge, enjoy your weekend. And as always, go out there and have yourself a great day, a great week. And we will talk to you next week.